Welcome to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast, where high-achieving entrepreneurs and leaders come to receive deep, insightful conversations and practical guidance to move from hustle to flow without sacrificing their authentic self and the results. I am your host and Chief Energy Officer, Tammy Cho, a former patient care leader turned international best-selling author, speaker, and face and body analysis expert. Get ready to lead your authenticity, lead your energy, and lead your impact. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast. I am excited to share a very special guest with you, Cindy Van Arnam. And she is going into the whole numerology behind things. As being the host of this podcast, I always talk about the importance of being authentic, and part of being authentic is really feeling actually soul aligned, whether you bring the soul piece into it or not, right? It's really this deep alignment within ourselves and aligned to our purpose and taking action from that really brings that joy and fulfillment. And I like to bring guests on that really introduce different ways of seeing it. Last week we had a master astrologer, and this week a numerologist. And so I really want to just bring people to different areas of personal development and to really open up these self-discovery pieces that are so important to leading ourselves. So thank you for being here, Cindy.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for this conversation today.
Yes, me too. And Cindy, was really nice to have sent me my numerology, so it might find out a little bit more about me than you want to know. But I'm just going to read Cindy's bio here. She is a rebellious, badass leader for intuitive coaches and mentors, sick and tired of living according to the status quo and playing by other people's rules. Like, who resonates with that one? She's all about blending magic and mystery and the power of the universe with some good old fashioned get shit done energy, which is super important. We got to live out our mission, not just talk about it. And with over 7 years of infatuation with the universal law, numerology, and emotional resiliency, she's driven by this unnatural obsession with helping her clients become resilient as fuck and shatter their glass ceiling and achieve extraordinary results. That's beautiful. Again, thank you so much for being here, Cindy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I always love to start our time together with my guests, really hearing about, like, why do you even do what you do? Like, where did you come from? What's your story? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot. My story is a little bit of a trigger warning just for anybody out there who's listening. I am an ex-cocaine addict and abuse survivor, so there is some in there. When I was 16 years old, I had a really happy childhood. I grew up on a farm in rural Alberta, Canada, riding horses and chasing cows, and I had 18,000 chickens. That's 6.3 million eggs a year.
Wow.
But when I was 16 years old, my dad passed away suddenly of a heart attack, and it ripped my whole life apart. I created a belief system at that moment in my life that the universe did not have my back, God hated me, and all men would leave. You can imagine the decisions I made with those belief systems. And so very quickly, I was a straight A student. I was doing great. I loved going to school. I was against drugs entirely. Like, I was the police in the school. They have weed in their locker. Like, I was that girl. And after my dad passed away, everything changed. And I fell in with the other crowd. I started smoking weed a lot, skipping school. I was high at school. I started arguing with my teachers. I had a math teacher in grade 11 and 12 who took advantage of vulnerable young women, and he tried to take advantage of me, and I said no, and I ran away into the principal's office and threw all my textbooks on his desk and said I quit. And at this point, my school, my graduating class had 18 students in it. So I was the straight A student who was helping their learning curve. So he didn't want me to leave, of course. But I ended up finishing school through correspondence because I refused to go back to this man's class, of course. Mm-hmm. But as a result of that, I would go to my tutor and I would skip out on class, and my grades were dropping exponentially, mostly because I was into drugs and boys at this point. So fast forward a few years, continuing to fall in with the wrong crowd. I started doing cocaine. I was doing cocaine so much that I was going for a week without food and without sleep. I weighed 1,000 pounds, or not 1,000 pounds, 100 pounds less than I do today. Mm-hmm. And I was in, you name the type of abuse, I've experienced it. And you name the bad decision, I made it. I just didn't care. I wasn't actively trying to kill myself, but I wasn't doing a good job of trying to stay alive either. But there was a moment throughout that 3 years, my family just kept saying to my mom, you got to give her tough love. You got to kick her out. You've got to put her out on the streets so she learns her lesson. You've got to send her to rehab. And my mom, bless her, she's still with us today. I love my mom so much. She refused to send me to rehab because she knew that I would never play by the rules and it wouldn't work for me. But what she kept saying to me over and over and over again was, I love you, but I don't love your actions. And in the beginning, I wasn't hearing that. Nobody loves me. Everybody leaves me. Everybody abuses me. All I was doing was abusing myself. And so I didn't hear it for a long time. But about 3 years in, something clicked in my brain and I finally heard it in a moment of vulnerability. And I dropped to my knees and I finally surrendered and I said, I can't do this anymore. I need help. Help looked a little different than most people's. Being the rebellious one. So my mom packed me up and sent me to a friend's house out in the woods in a cabin. They took away my car keys, my phone, and I literally laid on the couch and ate soup and smoked weed for 3 weeks to get clean. Weed saved my life. I don't smoke it anymore, but in that moment, it was so crucial to my well being because it helped boost my appetite. It got me away from the other extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized after those 3 weeks was over that if I just went back to life, I was just going to fall back in. And so I made a pretty crazy decision and I moved to a country that had the death penalty if you do drugs for a year. So I picked up everything. I was 23, 24 years old. I just had reconstructive jaw surgery and I moved to Jakarta, Indonesia for a year, teaching English as a second language. And I hated every moment of it. This was not fun. I did not enjoy this experience, but man, did I ever learn. I learned so much about myself and the world and how entitled I was behaving. And I learned a lot about taking responsibility for myself and my experience. And so I started studying religious texts. I read the Bible front to back. I read the Quran front to back, anything I could get my hands on, because I knew that there had to be something else out there. I knew there had to be something that would help me move beyond all of this trauma that I brought on upon myself. And nothing was working. Nothing was working. So my year was up in Indonesia. I met this very cute Kenyan boy on the dance floor, and he said, why don't you move to Dubai with me? He was a flight attendant for Emirates. And I said, okay, sure. So I hopped on a plane and moved to Dubai, also very strict drug laws there. So at this point, now I've been in a year in Dubai. I've been clean for 2 years. And I'd also lost all four grandparents, two uncles, and multiple other extended family members, not gone to any of their funerals. I never, my dad didn't have a funeral either. So I had never really, said goodbye or anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I came home. My mom had life threatening surgery, and another uncle passed away. And I decided, okay, it's time to face this. It's time to go home. So I came home and immediately started making bad decisions again. So, not the drugs, but I was drinking and driving. I got a DUI, and I was literally skipping from one job to the next, to the next, to the next. I had not at this point held a job for more than a year because I didn't like bosses. I didn't like being told what to do. And I always felt like I could do that so much better than you. So I had a bit of an ego complex as well. And during all this time, I'm still striving. I'm seeking for answers. And so I studied the greats, the T. Harv Eker, the Brendan Burchard, the Tony Robbins, you name it. I followed everything. I studied. I did T. Harv Eker's Quantum Leap program, traveled all over the world and learned everything you could learn about building a business online. But I didn't implement any of it. I just had this wealth of knowledge. I had a university degree in online business and didn't build one. So I find myself working behind the bar at a dive bar where I actually had a baseball bat for protection because I was closing the bar by myself. And I didn't actually have to use the bat, but I had to threaten with it one night. And that night I got in my car and I'm like, something just, again, that moment of awakening in your brain where you're like, wait a second. And I said to myself, you're so much better than this. You're worth more than this. This can't be it. As I'm driving home, a song comes on the radio by Lizzie Hale. It's Hailstorm. It's called I Am the Fire. And in that song, there is a phrase, you are the one you've been waiting for.
Mm,
And it just, even when I say it now, I'm like, oh, goosebumps, right? Because it just hit home for me. And I was like, oh. So 3 o'clock in the morning, I am researching all over Google. What do I do? What do I do? At this point, I'm 35 years old. I don't have a education. I do, school of life, but not really a solid education. So I
mhm,
decided to go back to school as a mature student to event and promotions management. And I hated that too. So at this point, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm an entrepreneur. Maybe that's what it is. So I started a business as a virtual assistant, helping spiritual healers and coaches do all the back end technology of their business because I was very good with technology and hated that too. I burnt out so fast
mm,
because I was not aligned with who I am. And that was what it all came down to, my searching and searching and searching and searching. I had not found that alignment yet. And I got a numerology reading and everything changed.
mm.
I met a woman, I was actually doing virtual assistant work for her, and she said to me about numerology, and I was like, what? No, that's a bunch of woo woo. I'm not buying into that crap. But she kept talking about it and talking about it. And pretty soon I'm like, wait a second, there's something to this. So I finally say, okay, I'm going to get a reading from you. And I get this reading, and to this day, I still feel it. It was like I'd been seen for the first time in my entire life. And my soul just went, yes, finally. So I stopped hiding behind the scenes as a virtual assistant. All over my numerology chart is you need to be a speaker, you need to share your story. And so I am now a 7-time International Film Festival Award winner. I've been on over 100 podcasts. And if you put a camera in my face, I don't shut up.
And here we are, right?
Here we are. Oh my gosh. So yeah, and then that's kind of, how I came to be where I'm at today. Obviously there was a lot of work to do once I saw myself. Then began the journey of forgiveness and healing and clearing out all that trauma and moving beyond it. And there was a
Yeah.
lot of work to be done there. But here I am today.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that. Like, I just want to say, as someone that has been through the drug journey myself and things like that in different shape and forms, but I just want to put a call out for people that been through this and that you're not alone and that this is me and Cindy. We're all coming full circle and just really want to put some love out there for people that have been on that journey. Just want to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's my first time
Mhm.
hearing that and
Mhm.
definitely touched my heart. And it's just everything that we've gone through makes us who we are. And as someone that does the face analysis, right, really seeing ourselves, like you said, your soul being seen
Yeah.
is such crucial. And I like how you said your soul. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people neglect this part of our being.
Yeah, it's easy for the mind to take over.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and like I said, there's so many different modalities to the soul. And so, like, how specifically did this reading of being seen, like,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe like an example of like how you navigated that and how you do that with your clients and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so first of all, like really seeing yourself is as simple as remembering who you were as a young child. Because that's really the core when you're still in that innocence of 3, 4, 5 years old, so long as there's not been trauma prior to that. But even then, you're still innocent and you're carefree. And I remember as she was doing this reading, an image came to my mind of myself standing on a stage in a campground somewhere. I was 5 years old and I was on this stage wearing my dad's cowboy hat. I had a walking stick and I was hamming it up. I was having the time of my life. I must have been singing. I don't know. But I was just like, look at me. Right. And all of that shut down when I went through that experience of my dad passing away. And so having that reading, it reminded me of that. And I went, oh, yeah. And it just opened me wide up. So this is one of the biggest reasons why I do this work with my clients, is because it opens you wide up to what's possible for you, for maybe things that you haven't even thought of or seen since you were, maybe even through past life, right? And sometimes when I do these readings, people are like, you can see the look on their face. They're like, do you live in my house? How do you know this information?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also use it very strategically for business growth, especially in the online space, but content creation, sales conversations, because you can't have the same regurgitated sales conversation with the same person, with everybody, because everybody's different, right?
Mhm,
Look at
mhm,
this in the on the internet. There's a lot of people out there who say, just create a Facebook group and post a lot of value and you'll make 10K months. Or all you need to do is have a Substack subscription and you'll make 10K months or 20K months, right? And just follow
mhm,
my cookie cutter strategy and step by step and it'll work.
mhm,
Except
mhm.
that we're all different.
Yeah.
So your strategy probably isn't going to work for me because I'm not the same as you. And then what happens is we get off kilter and we're not in alignment anymore. And our soul is screaming back here saying, why did we do this? And so what do? You burn out because you're pushing, you're forcing, you're trying so hard to make it work.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, your soul is like, can we please go over there? So the
Yeah.
numerology really helps support in that, in finding your own path and blazing your own trail, because you are the only one of you.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that. That all aligns and resonates with my experience and what I see. It's like we're
Mhm.
all different. We're
Yeah,
meant to be authentic to who we are,
yeah.
whatever that looks like, right? And really stepping outside the box. So I love this. And so maybe this is a good segue into my reading and
Yes.
shed some light, please.
You're going to tell all sorts of secrets about Tammy today.
Right. Well, I'm usually an open book, so let's go with
Yeah,
that.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so before we started recording this, I did send you a report and it was written and it was copy and paste. So what I'm going to do now and demonstrate now is completely intuitive.
Okay.
I am looking at this is what I've got written down. That's all I've got. And I'm just going to intuitively interpret what I see in your chart.
Okay.
So the first thing that I see is you carry the energy of what's called the emotional balance arrow, which means that you can sometimes just be so calm, cool, and collected that nothing can phase you. This is great so long as you are not struggling with the creative process, because we need to generate massive emotion in order to create something that we've never created before. And so the passion, the excitement, the bliss, the joy, the gratitude needs to be behind that. And because you've got that emotional balance arrow, sometimes you're just like, do, 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 do. I'm just doing the thing. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's been a huge part of my journey. My
Mhm.
emotional highlights of my human design as well. Like, just it's been a journey for the highs and lows and how to navigate that, and why I do what I do. But yeah, I would say like numbness was a big thing for me.
Mhm.
So numbness has obviously a shadow and light to it, and so
Yes.
depending where I am in that, yeah, that balance I think that you're talking about is that I could just actually limit my amount of passion,
Yeah.
expression of
Yeah.
creativity. So yeah, it's aligning. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So the other thing that I notice is you've got what's called the arrow of activity. So this is actually really powerful, especially for entrepreneurs, especially if you've got a big vision for the world, because you will have no problem accessing the resources that you need. You will be able to just like, oh, I need this person. I need this support. I need this money. I need this to show up. And it will simply show up for you. So when you've got this balance of this numbness, as you mentioned, right? But
Mhm.
you've also got the ability to call in any resource for yourself. It's almost like this dichotomy of, I can't quite get there to where I want to go, even though I know I can have access to everything I want. And so your job to navigate this is to really focus on amplifying those positive, all emotions belong, but the more the feelings, the feel good feelings, let's put it that way, right? To amplify and focus on gratitude but also based on your ruling number. So you are a ruling number 5 for your listeners out there. If you want to know more about Tammy, you can Google Life Path 5 and you'll find out more. I do not recommend Googling numerology, but that's one thing that I can suggest is you can always look that up. So the fives are like what I like to refer to as hummingbirds. Because if you observe a hummingbird in nature, if you really sit and watch a hummingbird, they go to this flower and this flower and this flower and this flower and this flower, and they are flitting all over the place. And from the external viewpoint, it looks like they're all over the place and they're moving very fast. But what is under the surface of that is the hummingbird is gathering nectar from this flower and this flower and this flower in order to bring it back home to create their own magical piece of creation. So it might look like you have your hands in many different pots and resources available to you everywhere, and you're kind of doing this and doing that and traveling all over the world because I know you do that. But what you're doing is actually creating your own magic. And the ruling number 5 is at the center, the core of all other numbers, which means that you are a support system for the world. And so people just naturally come to you, they just lean on you, and you've got all of these different resources to pull from that are available to you because you've gone out and gathered the nectar.
Mm.
How's that land for you?
Yeah, sorry, I filtered through the human design within my system is
Yeah.
that I am a manager, an emotional manager. And that's exactly what I'm noticing is that now that I'm taking programs, like nothing is fitting. I'm at my edge
Yeah.
where I've gathered all my magic and I'm actually meant, and I'm actually in a soul extension right now.
Yeah.
So this is all very interesting and it's all divine timing, which we'll dive into, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that totally lands. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So there's one more thing that I want to share, and this is related to a different type of numerology that I use. So what I've just shared with you is called Pythagorean numerology. Pythagoras was the OG numerologist. He was the mathematician. A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Mhm.
He started to see the patterns of the numbers, and he was the one who actually brought numerology to the forefront. Now, when we look at numerology from another perspective, I use a deck of playing cards, which we call the Book of Life. And the deck of playing cards, if you look at the history of it, it's fascinating. It goes back farther than we can even possibly imagine. Ancient Egypt or Atlantis, if you believe Atlantis existed even before that. And the belief is that it was given to us as a gift from our ancestors, as a book that has all the answers, if you know how to interpret it. Now, it was disguised as a game through poker and other games because we weren't supposed to have it, right? So there's only about 2,000 people on the planet who do this type of work that I do.
Cool.
And it is based off of numerology with a combination of the suits. So the suits themselves, there's 4 suits in a deck of playing cards, there's 4 seasons. There's 13 cards in each suit, there's 13 lunar cycles. If you add up all the numbers on the deck of playing cards, it equals 364. The Joker equals 365. It is so fascinating. I could talk about this all day long. But
Cool.
what I want to bring up is what your card is. So everybody has a birth card, and yours is the Ace of Clubs. So the club's energy is summertime, if you want to give it a season. And what are we doing in the summertime? We're hanging out with our friends. We're enjoying the sun. We're talking. We're communicating. So the club's energy is all that mental energy where you're actually doing things and you are communicating, you're sharing, you're expressing yourself. And the ace is the one, all the new things. So you, my dear, are never out of ideas.
Hmm. Probably not. Unless I'm stuck in some emotional thing, usually I'm pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. And it's constantly a regeneration for you, right? You're always regenerating yourself. You're becoming someone new all the time, especially as the 5, you layer those on. Like you cannot be stagnant. That's impossible for you. If you get caught up in your mind, you want to go move your body or do something to move that energy because the stagnancy is terrible for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it is important to move my body for sure.
Yeah.
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 Cool. So what ace, I'm just curious, like ace of clubs, like I don't know. Well, I'm just curious because this is a common thing, like soul purpose. Like where does that
Mhm.
land in all of these? Like, I mean, I heard different versions and I'm I'm curious what numerology brings to that.
Yeah. So the Ace of Clubs to me, I always feel is the Ace of Clubs is designed to bring new information to the world. So through your intuition or through your creative process, through your own magic, because you're a five, right? When
Mhm.
I'm doing readings, I'm always layering all of the different influences. And this is why I think it's so important to get an intuitive reading, because you could Google the Ace of Clubs. You'll find some cool information, but it won't be accurate. And it won't be designed for who you are today, because humans are designed to evolve and grow. And so the numbers also evolve and grow with us. So who you were as an Ace of Clubs when you were 10 is completely different from who you are as an Ace of Clubs now
Mhm.
and next year and the year after and the year after. But from a soul purpose perspective, here's what I think purpose is: whatever you're passionate about and excited to do right now.
I love that. It's so true. It's so simple but true, but it can't be that easy.
It really is that easy. What am I supposed to be doing? What you love, right? What lights you up? And your soul will tell you that. Not what you think you should be doing, not what your parents told you you should be doing, but what you want to do. And the possibilities are endless for you, but based on your card, it's going to kind of point you in certain directions. So for you, I would say it's about bringing new ideas, new and innovative ideas to the world.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely missing doing this mishmash right now, and I'm trying to
Mhm.
land how that is gonna be expressed.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyways,
That's your
there's a
five
lot
at
to it.
play, right? Your five is like mismatched, and now I got to figure out how that works, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And I have to say, right, like, I mean, I've been spending a year tweaking my messaging forever. And yeah, all this stuff comes up about, oh, you just gotta make a decision, blah, 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 blah. But a part of me is like,
Mhm.
something doesn't feel aligned, you know?
Mm, mhm.
And it's finally landing that it's because I'm actually meant to go back to nursing in some capacity,
Ah,
to work with a different population and expand within there. Whereas before I thought, in order to express my impact, I gotta solely be in business.
right.
So this is very interesting, and I wouldn't have aligned all of that without this divine timing piece. It's
Mhm.
finally the clarity is coming. So I speak to that because I know that
Yeah.
you have a lot of layers that you speak to in
Mhm.
divine timing.
Yeah, I layer universal law into everything I do as well. So it's always this layering thing that I do. And I think the universal law of divine timing is one of the most misunderstood laws I've ever seen. I
Mm,
hear people say this all the time. Well, if the universe wants me to have it, then so it will be. Or there's a different perspective here.
mm.
So what I've done, and I don't like this intangible, untouchable explanation. I want, like, okay, how do I actually implement this into my life and make this
Yeah.
work for me, right?
Mhm.
So if it's okay, I'll share the 6 stages of divine timing and how you can use them.
Yes, please do.
Okay, perfect. So the divine timing cycle carries 6 stages. So it's a circle. So to pick a starting point, we're going to start with awareness. And I'll use an example of, let's say I want to make $10,000 months consistently. So I'm now aware that this is what I want. I have an awareness. Ooh, wouldn't it be fun if I had $10,000 a month coming into my bank account month after month after month, right? And here's what humans do. How am I going to do that? Right? Not your job right now. Not your job right now. Right now, in awareness, you're meant to be getting curious and asking the question, I wonder if, I wonder what, I wonder, I'm curious. I'm going to go and let's do some research. Let's go find out who's out there that's making this kind of money, who's out there that's teaching us how to do this. So you're in this curiosity stage in awareness. And rather than jumping into action, which is what most humans will do, slow down, be with it, let that intention percolate a little bit, get excited about it without having to immediately move it into action. Now, to be clear, the first 3 stages of divine timing, you can move through them in an afternoon. So this isn't like you have to wait for a year before you can create this kind of
Mhm,
income. No, this is where you have to be an active participant. So
mhm.
once you've gotten curious about it and you've done your research and you feel that excitement brewing, then you move into the next stage of divine timing, which 99% of humans will skip over as well because nobody wants to feel their feelings.
Yeah.
So the second stage of divine timing is acceptance. And what happens when you decide I'm going to make $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month? All of your guilt and shame and blame because you haven't yet created that comes to the surface. Well, I should have been doing that. And, oh man, I can't believe I haven't already implemented that. What am I waiting for? And so you beat yourself up for a while. But most of us try to numb it, dumb it, drug it, shove it under the carpet, Netflix it, do what we can to
Yeah.
numb, right? I don't want to feel it. I'll just
Yeah.
go and take action on it. And I'm not going to worry about those feelings because I don't want to deal with it. But in doing so, you actually discount your intention and you don't tell the universe with heaps of energy that you actually want the thing, and you won't follow through if you don't feel your feelings. So we've got to come into acceptance of what is and what was, and very important, acceptance of what could be. So forgiveness work in the acceptance stage. I forgive myself for not having created that yet. I love and accept myself anyway, but then also generating that energy behind it of like, oh, yes, I'm going to create this. I'm so excited, right? And most people skip past that because we just want to get to action stage, right? I just want it to happen. And so we blast through it and try to control it. So again, in acceptance, you're sitting with it. It's more of a being energy than a doing energy. But
Mm.
then you move into the next stage of divine timing, which is self responsibility. Now, here's where you become an active participant. You pull up your big girl pants and you decide you're not yet taking action. This is very important. It's not now you go flying around the internet posting all the things. You have to, again, decide not in the mind, but on a cellular level. This is happening. This is mine. Now, I most people have experienced the full body yes at some point in their life, where your body just leans in, or you get the tingles all over your body. I'm getting that right now, just talking about this. Every time I talk about divine timing, I'm like,
Love it. Love it.
and it's that full body, fuck yeah, we're going to go do this. And that is what moves you into action. So you could do those 3 stages in an hour easily if you are prepared with the right tools and you know the stages, which then at this point, now you move into activation where you become the person that is aligned with that thing you're going after. So to create 10K months consistently, month after month after month, there's things you've got to do. And you've got to activate the law of compound interest where you're doing enough of the right things enough times over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you get the results. Here's where a lot of people sabotage because the commitment piece is hard. But if you've done the work of awareness, acceptance, and self responsibility, you're unstoppable. You just do the thing because you've decided full body instead of skipping over all the steps and trying to get into action. So in activation, you are taking action. You are a active participation, co-creating the dream together. So the universe might be like, you need to take a nap today. And you're going to be like, no, but I have to get this done. No, go take the nap. Listen to what your nudges, your intuition is pointing you towards. And your intuition might be like, you need to go for a walk in the park. And you're like, but I have a podcast to record. Go for a walk in the park because you're going to run into somebody who's got the perfect connection with the perfect thing, who's going to pay you $10,000 that day if you go and listen. So it's about that inspired action piece where you're moving the needle forward, but also staying open to receive from any direction because that consistent income could come from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You do enough of the right things enough times, you activate that law of compound interest, you move into momentum or acceleration in divine timing. And this is where it gets really fun. You're very busy. All of a sudden, the calendar is filled with sales calls, and you've forgotten to shower because you're so busy. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I can handle it all. It's too busy. So what do? Sabotage. I can't do it. It's too much. But you asked for it. So the things to remember in momentum are it won't last. This is short-lived. It's this burst of flame because you've been doing the work to get here. So stay the course. I
Mm,
always like to think of momentum as like a rocket taking off. So you've been doing all this inner work, you've been set the intention, you've built the energy, you've made the decision, you're taking the actions. Now the rocket's ready for liftoff. In a rocket launch, there is smoke and debris and crap flying everywhere. You're the rocket, not the debris. So head down, blinders on, be the rocket, the smoke and debris and all that crap, you clean it up later. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So in that stage, a lot of people sabotage because things come up to trigger them. There's situations that occur and you don't know how to handle them. And so you just shut it down because you're so busy,
mm,
which then you start to see the results coming in. So now you've got that $10,000 coming in and you're like, oh my God, I did it. And here's where people freak out because all of a sudden the calendar gets quiet. And you're
mm,
like, what did I do wrong? Nobody's booking calls with me. What do I do? Because you've moved into the final stage of divine timing, which is transmutation, which is a moment to honor the journey and to celebrate, which most people forget to do, and to express gratitude for what just occurred in the transformation because you have now become someone who makes $10,000 a month.
mm,
And then once you've transmuted it, it's about the integration piece, right? We try to just skip on to what's next. We don't integrate. So then we go back and we miss the $10,000 the next month. So if you take the time to integrate that, then you move into awareness again. And now you're like, what if I made $20,000 this month?
mm.
And around and around and around you go.
This is so beautiful that when we first came on the call, I was like, I feel like we need to talk about this. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's beautiful because I was getting this cycle in my intuition and I heard someone say it a different way and then
Yeah.
another person say this and then you're saying this. So lots of confirmation right here.
Yeah.
And I could see right on my journey where like I was in the first few stages having the awareness, but it wasn't like landing, right? And
Yeah.
so it didn't matter how much I take action. It just didn't feel like it was going to move to the next step. So I
Mhm.
want to ask you, because I'm sure a lot of people get stuck at different stages. And so like what happens for someone that you need the money,
Mhm.
let's say, right? And
Yeah.
it's like it's in that space where you're like it doesn't necessarily feel like it's actually arriving here. So I'm just
Mhm.
curious, like what would you say around that?
Yeah, so this is a lot of the work that I do with my clients in helping you with these tools in every stage. The first stage of anything, no matter where you are, what time it is for you, is awareness of what time it is. Because if you don't know where you're at in your divine timing cycle, it's going to be confusing. You're going to reach for the wrong tool to support you. So, depending on where you're at, you may need forgiveness work. You may need to work with a healer. You may need more understanding of who you are. You may need to lean into values work in the activation stage. You may need somebody to just hold your hand and cheer you on during momentum and remind you to take a shower and eat food sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And this is why having a mentor is so powerful to help you walk through that. And I've been doing this work so long that I can have a conversation with somebody for about 2 minutes and I know exactly what time it is for them. Yeah.
Beautiful. Like I love that because and then that's where the other pieces of the numerology comes in with the cycle you're in and are you being yourself and are you living your own innate rhythm in addition to the divine timing. So
Yeah.
anyway, I love this type of stuff. You can see like I mean like I know that sometimes many people are operating from their head, right? And we get
Mhm.
stuck in the journey of like, we need to do all these things. And it's like, I hope that Cindy has really brought this full attention for you to really see that there's a process to all of this. Like, very much like what I talk about a lot of times slowing down, acceptance, like receiving, learning. And that's where a lot of people get stuck learning how to receive, right?
Yeah.
And I'm being called deeper into that. I've been getting that intuition and finally I'm listening. So
Me
anyway,
too. Me
I'm
too.
on the journey too, right? And so
Yeah.
this is so beautiful. And so I'm curious, like as we need to wrap up, but do you have any last words that you want to bring to the table for our audience today?
Yeah, I love that you brought up that we're all on the journey. It's not like you and I are sitting here going, we've got it all figured out because we don't, right? And if anybody tells you that they do have it figured out, they're lying to you. This is a journey, and our divine timing cycle flows through every week, every year, every 7 weeks, every 7 years, and your entire life cycle. And you can also intentionally activate a cycle for yourself as well. And so recognizing that no matter where you're at in your life, what time it is for you, there are tools available to you. There is support available to you. You do not have to do this alone, and please don't try. And it's really about coming into that place of understanding the core of who you are and being in awe of who that person is. So it all comes back to loving the fuck out of yourself, as I always say, and
Oh, I love that.
really trusting in the process, which is not easy to do. Nobody said this work was easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it and would be rainbows and kittens all the time, which
Hmm,
it's not.
hmm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Like I always talk about really wanting to help people fall in love with themselves. 'Cause it sounds so simple and airy fairy, but it's
right.
actually the truth.
It's,
Like right
it's
there.
the work.
If you hear anything at all, right? All your problems relate to this.
Yep. It's the
So
work. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So that's so beautiful. And so what would you like to offer the audience? I think you have
Mhm.
something, and where do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so depending on what you're interested in, I've got tons of numerology resources on my website, but I've also got a workbook to activate your weekly divine timing cycle. And in this workbook, there's journal prompts for each section of divine timing. So you can play around with it. It'll teach you how to calculate the 7 day cycle that we go through every week based on your date of birth. And you can kind of play around with and start to feel what that timing feels like. So then you can expand that into the rest of your life as well. So you can find that on my website, fullblastcoaching.com, and I'll make sure that you have the link for the show notes to that actual workbook.
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely put that in the show notes so everyone could just listen and click. It sounds amazing. I think I'll go there as well.
Yeah, please do.
I love this stuff. I love this stuff. So, yeah, and so thank you so much for being here once again, Cindy.
Thank
You
you.
are appreciated. Your perfect divine timing from me today. It's like, yeah, perfect, perfect because like I haven't shared actually on my podcast about this awareness and realization about going back into nursing. And anyways, it's just interesting. It's so
So I'm
interesting.
known as the person who gets people to say things they haven't said before. That happens a lot.
I love that. Oh, yeah, like I just love being with people that are purpose aligned and they know themselves as well to speak that. So,
Mm,
so beautiful. I love it. I love you.
thank you. I
Um,
love you too.
thank you. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. I hope this really opened your eyes and understanding like let's stop pushing and let's start being like being ourselves, loving ourselves, coming back to ourselves and letting it be easy and in flow. And there's a time and place, there's seasons. And yes, please reach out to Cindy, reach out to myself and hello Kitty.
This is
And
Mars. He decided to show up.
yes, let's bring our life into podcasts as well. So please reach out to us and to support you wherever you are in your journey. So much love. Thank you again, Cindy, and I
Thank you.
will catch you guys all later.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. And leave us a review so others can find the life-changing content that we're sharing here. We are starting our movement on our way to #1, and we need your help to get there. If you'd like to connect with other high-achieving entrepreneurs and leaders who are also on their authentic, energetic leadership journey, join our free Facebook community, Energetically Aligned Leaders. Go to pathtotheheart.com/links to join the Facebook group, book your personalized face analysis experience, or to access our resources.